Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Change of Shift podcast. I am your host, Sean. Unfortunately, once again, I am flying solo this episode. My co-host, Emily, is busy saving lives amongst other personal challenges right now. Work schedule, life schedule, things are just not cooperating with her right now. So you might have to listen to my voice for the next couple of weeks until Emily can get things straightened out. So it's not as if she doesn't want to be here. Unfortunately, there are way more important things than talking to you on a microphone right now. Not that we don't appreciate you tuning in, downloading, listening, viewing. Unfortunately, for those of you who work this job can completely understand how busy your life can really get. Like every previous episode, we're going to talk about what happened last week. So last week, let's see here. So we're 2 weeks behind because I'm just as busy as Emily. So the last recorded episode that I have that was posted was about my experience in Vegas during my conference. Last week, I did a live blab concerning Nurse Practitioner Week. Unfortunately, I am a week behind and I have not posted that yet. So stay tuned. I did have some internet connections, and I have woefully warned my wonderful guest this evening that there's a grave possibility that the internet gods may not cooperate with me. I think I solved all my problems, so we will keep our fingers crossed. Today we have a special guest. We have a nurse blogger and senior nursing student joining our episode this evening. We'll get to her story in just a minute here. A couple housekeeping tips for those of you who are catching this post-edit. We do our show live on the Blab IM platform. It is a live video chat. We do have and do encourage those people who are out there on the internet, who are out there on Twitter, to come join the conversation. My guest and I will be talking in real time, but we will also have people jumping in and jumping into our forum to try and ask some questions. Every once in a while, I accidentally will start talking about things that I can see. So those of you who are listening to this may not see what I'm seeing, and I apologize ahead of time. I will do my best to try and explain or give descriptions. Episode 17, we're going to interview MightyNurseMegan. How cool of a name is that? Megan is a senior nursing student out in California. She is, I believe, still a certified nursing assistant, still working as we call them a CNA. Is it okay to call you a CNA?
Yeah.
Okay. She graduates this coming spring in May. I posted it as in July, but I will gladly change that she graduates in May 2016 with her bachelor's in nursing. The reason why we invited Megan to come join us on our show this evening is because she is a nurse blogger. And you'll know, if you know anything about me or anything about my co-host, that's how we started this wonderful game, is that we were bloggers way back before the Twitter and Facebook era. And we have a special place in our heart for those who put in the work to run a personal blog. As the name says it, she runs a blog called MightyNurseMegan. I'm going to have to ask her where she created that name.
All right.
She documents her journey finishing nursing school. She's interested in passing on the knowledge she gains to the next generation nursing students. She offers advice, tells her side of the story, and is genuinely honest about who she is as a professional. And I think that's what I like most about her, is that she is willing to admit her mistakes, but she is also willing to share them and learn from them. Really cool fact about her on her blog profile. Apparently she has a really cool study buddy. She calls her study buddy Delilah, and it's a pet betta fish.
Mm-hmm.
Quick fun fact. I used to have betta fishes myself. Are they fish or fishes? Fishes? Yeah, they're fishes.
Fishes, I think.
So, Megan.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you this evening?
Pretty good. Just came back from doing a group project.
Oh, and what's the project?
It's actually an evidence-based practice project on alarm fatigue.
Oh, boy, I could talk ad nauseum about that. You know,
Yeah.
there's a school of thought out there. Now, once again, all of my experience is in the ICU. So,
Hmm.
alarm fatigue. When I was a brand new nursing student in the very first hospital I ever worked in, during hospital orientation, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was a safety officer. He talked about how the alarms turn into wallpaper, and that you slowly but surely don't hear any of the alarms. And back when I was first becoming a nurse, all I could think to myself was, how do you not hear all of those horrible noises? And
Hmm.
to this day, I have to pay it. I don't hear the alarms anymore. I see the lights. I see the
Yeah.
red lights or the yellow lights on the monitor or on the screens, or I can hear the difference in the way the heart beats and things like that. But I very rarely hear alarms anymore, and that's a little scary. So,
Yeah.
so that would be a very interesting topic to hear about.
Yeah. I think post graduation, I'll post it on the blog and
That would be cool.
yeah, see
Yeah.
how it goes. It was interesting to research and it's kind
Uh,
of not so much stuff out there. It's a little newer.
yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. And I think it's because we have so many alarms out there now that it's a combination of the word, let's just go with the simple term that we get fatigued. We get, so used to them being there, but then we get either we get too used to them or we get so annoyed by them that people will either turn them off or turn them down.
Yeah.
So, which is just as bad.
Hmm.
Okay. So some of the information I gathered from your blog is that you've only had this blog since July of this year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What, such a newbie.
I know.
Wow. Seems that you like to offer advice as well as seek answers for questions you can't answer yourself. You
Hmm.
also do product reviews, but you're very choosy about your product reviews, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I already mentioned before that you admit that you're going to make mistakes, but that you're willing to learn from them and share what you learn, which I think is absolutely one of the most important characteristics of a nurse is understanding that you're not going to know everything. You're going to make mistakes, but you're not supposed to make them twice.
Yes.
And it sounds like you seem to be the excellent student because you're now a lab assistant.
Yes. So I'm a senior lab assistant at my nursing school and help run the sophomore skills sessions. So teaching them the basics of like assessment and all the kind of CNA work.
Okay. All right. Now, did you volunteer for that or did they ask you?
It's actually a job position. So we
Really?
went through a whole interview phase that consisted of making a video demonstrating a skill and then a panel interview.
Wow. So you actually get paid for this?
Yes, but
Wow.
honestly, I love it and I get to help out with our simulation room too. So that's a ton of fun.
That'll be like what I like to call a feather in your cap for when you move on after graduation. You can
Yes.
put that on your resume. So not many students understand the value of adding a feather to your cap, even as no matter how small or large it is. It shows how diverse you are. So kudos to you.
Hmm.
All right. So we're going to dive right into these questions here. Let's start with something simple here. I've given kind of a rundown of what I've learned from your blog and from your
Yeah.
social media sites, but help us fill in the blanks. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I came up with Mighty Nurse Megan, so I like to watch the show American Ninja Warrior. And if you watch it, you know of Mighty Casey, and I think she's 5'1", and I'm only 5'2", so I love that she says that she's mighty. So I just kind of added that together. So that's how the name came up.
Love it.
Yeah. But other than that, I'm just a senior nursing student. I'm in my bachelor's, so I have to do a lot of other general educations, which can sometimes be a struggle when I'm trying to study nursing and have a huge history test coming up. But I like being out on the water. I live close to the beach, and I take out stand-up paddle boards and kayak and a lot of my stress relievers involve getting out, walking along the beach or going to the zoo. So kind of living the life here in school.
Megan, we just met, but I feel like I could slap you
Yeah.
for rubbing that in my face, seeing as I'm in the other side of the United States, and I got excited because it got to 59 degrees today.
Yeah, and it was probably 64 degrees, and us in California, we bundle up and think it's cold, and it's kind of
Nah,
funny.
59 degrees here in the middle of November is a heat wave for me in Western Pennsylvania. So I live on the cusp of on Lake Erie, large Lake Erie. So the wind and the water are not very kind to us, and winters here are a bit challenging, we'll say. So I'm a beach person, so I'm very, 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 very jealous. I keep telling my wife sooner or later we're going to move to warmer weather, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'll keep my fingers crossed.
I love the beach. It's a great way to just kind of sit there and watch the waves and forget all the stress that's happening in school or with the work, but it makes it nice.
Now, your program is a 4-year program, correct?
So the first year is considered pre-nursing, where we do our anatomy and physiology, our general chemistry, and microbiology. And then you apply kind of around, I think, December into the actual program. And sophomore year is when you start your adult health classes and clinicals. And,
interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that. And now, do you know offhand if that's the standard, or is that just where you happen to be going to school?
It kind of seems just kind of where my school is. I know a couple other 4-year universities that like the first 2 years are all your general educations, and then the last 2 are just your core nursing classes.
Now, you'll have to excuse the old timer here because I entered the nursing profession with a diploma.
Oh.
That was a long time ago. Entered with an RN diploma. It wasn't even an associate's degree. It was a diploma from a hospital-based program. Basically, I took classes for an 18-month accelerator program, graduated, able to take my boards, and then boom, you get to become a nurse and work as a nurse. So I really got tired of going back to school, let me tell you. So many years later, now I'm an advanced practice nurse working as a nurse practitioner. So go figure that one out.
That's a lot of
the sky's the limit. It is. But I wouldn't change it. If I could change anything, I would change the amount of money I owe. Other than that, I wouldn't change anything.
Yes.
So there are a lot more nurse bloggers out there than I care to admit. But I don't know why, but your name just stuck out, the Mighty Nurse Megan. And I for one, love originality. So tell us why you decided to blog. And what I find interesting is that most people will blog from the start of their journey. And you picked up blogging almost at the end of your journey. So how did that happen?
So I'm a very kind of visual auditory learner. And when I was starting nursing school, I kind of like to search for things, find other topics or other people going through it. And I found that I couldn't really find a lot of student nurse bloggers, but I had never really thought of blogging at the start. And it was just something I don't know, I felt like doing over the summer and just kind of picked it up and jumped right into it. I follow Nurse Iroll is probably the biggest one I follow. And I like to keep up with hers. And there's a couple people on YouTube that vlog, but the vlogging aspect to me wasn't kind of my style. I kind of like to write things down and have pictures. And maybe I'll move to doing like video reviews. I haven't really decided. But so starting a blog for me was completely random on a whim. I wanted to share my experiences. I love talking with the sophomores that I do teach about my experiences and sharing it. And I wanted to be that for other people. And I've met some great people so far blogging, actual nursing students who have emailed me with questions. One of them, her and I email, I think about once a week, what's going on with our lives. And it's neat to learn about her program compared to mine. And how her school prepares her differently for the NCLEX, and it's very nice because I didn't do the HSEI tests or the P's.
Hesse, yeah.
You know what? My school uses ATI, so
ATI. That's what mine used.
yeah.
Yeah, that's how old ATI is.
Which is funny because a lot of people don't like it. I know.
No, I didn't like it either. Nobody liked it. So,
Yeah.
but it from what I remember, once again, talking about how long ago it was for me, it's one of the more successful and more effective programs out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a good track record. So kudos to your school program for sticking with something that works.
Yeah.
So do you think maybe you jumped into blogging because of becoming the lab assistant?
I think maybe it had to do a little bit with that. I really enjoyed kind of sharing my story and teaching people. And I knew when I was a student, I couldn't find a lot of students to follow. And I like being that person. I like mentoring. I hope maybe one day on my unit, I can become like a preceptor or a mentorship program, whatever they have available. So it'll relate hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always curious as how bloggers find the blog altogether because, I don't know how in our social media world now, in the world of instantaneous, you have the instantaneous Twitter, instantaneous Facebook, and on a regular basis, instantaneous Instagram.
Or Snapchat.
Yes. Oh, yes. But I'm still learning about Snapchat. I'm still a beginner in Snapchat. I don't think I'm ever going to get the hang of it. So I'm better at giving myself a little bit of time to prepare. So, but blogging is a whole different world because you actually have to put in a little bit of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything from the actual blog post itself to the way it looks, knowing how to do layouts. Now, back when I started blogging, the interface, meaning because you use Blogspot,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So that was one of the very, very first platforms ever out there. And it was still very complex. You actually had to know how to write HTML.
Oh my goodness.
Like if you wanted to put a picture into a blog post, you had to know how to write the code. You had to write the short form code to get that picture in there. And things have obviously developed over the years, but you need to appreciate
I know
how simple and easy it is to make a blog now. Because all you had to do is basically pick a layout, pick some colors, put in some information, and boom, you're ready to go. And it required a lot more work back then. But that's what I think is so great about blogs now is that it doesn't take, if you have an idea, if you have a concept, you can get it out there within hours, and I always like to find blogs out there that find their own way. They don't do the same thing the next person's doing. And I liked your approach is the fact that you're very genuine. You know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And you want to know more. So, and the fact that you're almost ready to graduate and you're already wanting to lead. So that's very encouraging to me. So I'm very happy to have crossed paths with you.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
There's one part on the blog I mentioned how in my own nursing school, I kind of had a little hiccup with, they think I violated HIPAA on just a Twitter post. And I think I mentioned going through that experience and just reminding people to be careful, especially my generation. Everything's out there on social media and the internet, and anybody can read it anywhere.
And my co-host and I have talked about it on numerous occasions, not only on our podcast here, but on other platforms, is that the hardest part for you as a nurse now is to understand that your personal and professional lives are not separate. They're going to be together. You're never not a nurse. Once you graduate and you have that license, that even though you may not be working out at the bar or wherever it is you choose to be in your social, life, you're still a nurse. You're still a licensed professional. So you don't get the chance to let loose and let it all hang out anymore. You actually have to maintain some sort of professionalism no matter where you are. And it's very hard because then you start to feel spiteful. Like, why am I not allowed to let it loose, to let it go? And it's part of the responsibility of becoming a nurse, because that's why we're one of the most respected professions out there, because of the work that we do. So the other part of HIPAA is knowing what not to say, where to say it, you know. And every blogger out there eventually has to deal with it. And if you deal with it proactively, it's never a problem.
Yeah.
If you wait for someone to slap you in the face, then you're going to chase your tail. So, and it's very simple. I mean, come on. You don't say anything on your blog that you wouldn't say in the halls of the hospital. It's really that simple. It's not that complex. There's a famous doctor in social media. You ever been to Kevin MD?
Yes, I have.
So he wrote a book about HIPAA and social media. And one of the concepts that I don't know if he talked about it or if I've heard it somewhere else, but it's called the elevator test.
Oh.
And if you would say it in the elevator in your hospital, then it's safe to blog about it. But if you're in the elevator, you're not going to talk about a patient and their family and or their diagnosis on an elevator with public people. So you're not going to do that on your blog. And it's really that simple, that straightforward.
Yeah. The hardest part for me at school was the tweet said I held a baby for 30 minutes at clinical and it was wonderful. And they said that was violating HIPAA.
Wow.
Yeah.
That seems to be a little bit of headhunting there or anything else. But yeah, you have to be, I still do it now, that I could have a bad day at work and I post a tweet or I post a picture. I have to be very conscious of making it as generalized as possible without having to give any indicators about anything that happened during my day. And one of the bloggers, I'm trying to remember who it was, so give me 1 second here.
Okay.
It was the Nerdy Nurse.
Yes, I was about to ask you if it was her.
It was the Nerdy Nurse. Yeah. So she talked about delaying your stories, meaning that on November 17th, today, hint, hint, we're recording on November 17th, this happened to you, and you really want to blog about it, but don't blog about it for a couple weeks or at least a week. And then make sure you change everything about the scenario. It didn't happen in the ICU. It happened in the recovery room. It wasn't a male patient. It was a female patient. It wasn't elderly. They were a 10-year-old. So that there's no way that they could trace it back to the real experience. So yeah, at least one way of safeguarding it. So, but yeah, that's the hard part, is that way back when I started, way back when many other nurse bloggers started, you started as an anonymous blogger, and there was safety in that because no one ever knew where you were, who you were, where you worked. So you had a little bit of freedom to say what you wanted to say, but not revealing your identity. There's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with it. So I'm glad that nothing came of that for you.
Yeah, and it just makes it harder because every nursing student who follows me, they always want to hear about my clinical day, what I'm learning, and going about that is tricky.
Yes, it is. It's very tricky. And I think if you say that out there, they would most nursing students will understand that.
They get it.
Or you're just going to have to private message them or email them, something like that. So
yes.
You still run the risk that way. So, okay, as usual, I digress. So, talking about your blog.
Yes.
Now, I sort of spoiled it because I remember reading it, but do you remember your very first blog post?
Do not remember it, and I was going to look it up after that question, and I did not.
What's the earliest blog post you remember?
Probably the one I just wrote. I remember bits and pieces of posts, but a lot of them are a blur. The earliest one I remember is probably things I bring with me to clinical, and
Okay.
I know there was one on compression socks with the company Nabi, and I just remember that because he's going to do a giveaway on my blog soon. So been in contact with him. So that's the only reason why I really remember that.
Okay. If I remember correctly, your very first blog post was, "Hey, this is my first blog post. Here's what I'm going to do.
Probably.
Here's how I'm going to do it, and here's why I'm doing it." You know, it was just a general, "Hey, I'm going to give this a try and see how it goes."
Yeah.
And quite honestly, that's how most of us start. So it's completely normal and almost the standard at this point.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people start a blog, at least to my knowledge, in my short experience. Most nurse bloggers don't start with a plan. They just start with an idea.
I don't have a plan. I went from being in summer, I could blog every day and build up a lot on my blog. And now that I'm in school, it's if I get the chance on the weekend, I can post. If not, oh well, I'll get it next week.
Yeah. So that leads into my next question is, how do you go about creating content? How do you go about creating blog posts? Do you think of them ahead of time, or is it more spontaneous that I have time? I'm thinking of this. I'm just going to talk about that.
A lot of my blog posts are already kind of planned out. I do it on my phone. I'll be at school and be like, oh, wow, this is a great, interesting topic. I'll talk about it. Or helping the sophomores with their new skills. I'm like, wow, I can see they're struggling. I'm sure other people out there have the same questions. But sometimes I don't always get to do those posts. I just haven't had time to actually sit down and develop good material. Like I still have head to toes that I haven't talked about, or med math, which is so huge I haven't even got to. Other times it's on a whim.
So if a seasoned nurse blogger can give you a piece of advice, is to just put it into workable pieces. There's no way you're going to get a head to toe kind of post in one shot. So just do the first piece. Yeah. So just a paragraph of, here's what I think about when I do head to toe. And then you could label that, head to toe exam part 1. Then you can do part 2, part 3, part 4. Then you go as many parts as you want. But that way you're at least getting it out there. And what's really cool about that is you can entice your readers, because then your readers are going to go, well, what about part 2? What are you going to do in part 2?
Yeah.
How are you going to get to part 4? So that's a wonderful way of engaging your readers. So that's the key to the success, is just to get your thoughts out there on the screen. So some of the blog posts I read, you've talked about how you deal with stress, which is a huge thing for nurses. And then I also like that you did a blog post on tips for your first day of nursing school.
Yeah, it's scary.
It is. I still remember mine. 10 years later, I still remember my very first day of nursing school. Wow. And then I remember my first day when I went back to get my bachelor's. And I still remember my very first day in class for when I started my master's program. So those are pretty important days, because it kind of sets the tone for either that entire year, that entire semester. I always like to tell the story about, it's funny how you can see how people are the first time they sit down together. Do people avoid each other? Who are the front row sits? People who like to sit in the front row. Who are the people who like to sit? So you want to make sure you don't miss anything, but I don't want to be right there. I love it.
And I'm also the person who will whisper the answer to the question, but I'm too afraid to say it out loud.
Yep. I was there. It takes time. I'm now the one who sits in the front and I'm now the one who will be daring enough to raise my hand, even if I maybe don't even know the answer, because it's one of the best ways that I learn, because then I remember what I did in class. And that's kind of why I like the traditional classroom setting versus online.
Yeah, online's hard. None of my nursing classes are online, and I like it better. Unfortunately, my school is more of a team-based learning classroom, which is okay, except for they leave all the instruction material to PowerPoints that we're supposed to look at before class, and then in class we do a group activity.
Yep.
It's kind of hard because then you miss some information that are in lecture, or for me on tests, I can remember things by the way the teacher said it or what we were talking about at that time, so I kind of missed some of that.
You're like me. You're a very visual learner.
And still write with pen and paper for my notes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If I had the time, I'd go look at pull up some of the drawings that I used to do, like when I had to learn as a nurse practitioner, you have to learn 12 lead EKGs. You have to learn the vectors, and you have to learn the leads and things like that. And I actually drew a 3D drawing of the heart with all of the vectors, and it was the best way for me to learn. So I'm a very visual learner. So arrows, stars, graphs, lines, you take, so different colored pens.
Yep, highlighters.
Yep. Yep. I actually still have. Yep. It's right here sitting in. Still have that. So that I can draw little squares. And so for those of you listening to post show, it's a template that I bought from Staples probably 7 to 10 years ago. It's a stencils of just circles, squares, hexagons, stars. And I used to use that whenever I would do care plans. And I would do that whenever I would do like, what are they called?
Like concept maps?
Concept maps, yes. Thank you. Oh.
We still do them. They're not going away.
Yeah, sorry. We still you'll use them throughout your career, but you use them in a different way. So the concept map at the master's level, you use it as a way of presenting a timeline for an evidence-based proposal. So kind of like, if this, then this. If this, then this. So you use a concept map to help visually express that. So nightmares. Brings back nightmares. Have I mentioned how much I hated being a student?
That's how I feel now. Like, I always loved school, and my school has us do a strengths quest exam right when we're a freshman, and my first one is learner, and then I think my third one is like achiever or something. So school is important to me, but as I'm reaching the end, I'm kind of burning out, and like, I'm going to push off taking my master's and wait a little bit.
I would highly encourage you not to, because you can get very comfortable with not being in school.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll go for like some certificates, certifications.
Yeah.
So,
girl after my own heart. It's exactly what I did. So, okay. Moving on once again. So, in the 6 months that you have been blogging, what's your favorite blog post?
Oh, man. My favorite one. Oh, I don't think I have a favorite yet.
Everybody has a favorite. Everybody has a go-to blog post that they always talk about.
I don't really do that. A lot of people from my school don't even know I blog. I keep them out of the loop. Some people have discovered, some people haven't.
Yeah.
But
do you know what your most popular blog post is?
A lot of people like some of the book reviews I've done. I think I did one. It was I think it was Trauma Junkie, what it's called, or it's about flight nursing.
Yeah.
A lot of people like that one, and a lot of people like the scrub reviews. Those are the favorites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Blogger still has that function where you can go back and look
Oh yeah,
at,
I see all the graphs
views and all that.
I see
So
who's sending in the traffic, what's
yeah,
Googled, everything.
yeah. So that'll help. You can use that as a way of navigating to what your next blog post could be.
Mm-hmm.
So if your readers are liking a lot of your reviews, then do more reviews.
But it's hard because I want to share the knowledge I have or the experiences and learning.
Yeah,
And I don't want to just be all reviews. So
it's called
balance.
being creative as well. So what do they call that? Creative licensing. There you
Yeah.
go. So I'm the same way. I know what people want, but I know what I want to say too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Because I know what will get this podcast more listeners, but there's just certain things I still want to say. So
Yeah.
it's
But
kind of the way it's going to roll.
I'm looking forward. I'm going to do like a holiday gift guide. So that is what I'm excited about.
Okay. Now, is it going to be a holiday gift guide for nurses only?
No, I think I'm going to gear it towards students.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to categorize it then. You're going to have to go with first year versus third year students or
Mm-hmm.
even the graduating students like yourself. What's a good gift?
Yeah. Shoes.
Everybody loves the stethoscope.
Oh, I got a good stethoscope. I actually won it in my nursing school, and
Nice.
like my baby, it's a Lippmann Cardiology 3. So.
Oh, wow. No, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
I think I have a Cardio 2. I don't remember.
Yeah. So the only thing I like right now is shoes.
Yeah, I tried 3 separate times to wear clogs. Can't do it.
A lot of mine are more sneaker based. So I have a Danskos that's a sneaker base, and then I recently just got Grey's Anatomy by Shoe Walk, I believe. And they're not so much a clog, but they have a lot of padding in them, and so far they're pretty comfortable.
Yeah, you need a good pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how they look; they got to be comfortable.
Well, no, you can still have fashion. I have pretty fashionable shoes.
I love it. Oh, no. Still got to look good.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing, too, because, I mean, I'm young and I'm going to go into nursing profession.
I
don't want...
We're drawing that line now.
Yeah, I don't want boring
I just got called the old guy. So I'm the old guy who has no fashion sense. That's great.
Well, I don't really know. So.
I don't. It's okay. I don't.
Yeah.
I wear the same color scrubs every day because I'm in the ICU. I wear the same color scrubs, top and bottom, same thing, same shoes every day. No. I'm boring.
Yeah.
So we have a diehard listener who's with us tonight, Chili, and she's asking that there's other clothes besides scrubs?
It's rare. I'm finding it still as a student that I'm wearing scrubs a lot more than regular clothes.
Oh yeah, it's bad now. Like when I have to go to meetings outside of work and it's work related, I find an excuse to wear scrubs to the meeting. It's really bad.
See, I find excuses to wear my nursing shoes versus my regular everyday shoes because they're just more comfortable.
That's great. All right, so let's move on here. And I think we've already answered this question, but we'll officially ask it. What particular area of nursing are you most passionate about when you blog?
See, I haven't really blogged, I don't think, towards a specific passion of nursing because I don't even know myself what kind of nursing I want to get into. I like being fast-paced. I like being busy, and I like multiple learning opportunities and not seeing kind of the same diagnosis over and over again. But then I kind of miss out on being like a know-it-all of those diagnoses if I see them every time. So it's hard for me deciding what I want to go into. I'm on an ICU floor right now with my preceptorship, and it's wonderful, but having the 1 or 2 patients for me isn't keeping me too busy. I haven't had to do any drips yet. I don't know how I lucked out in my 11, 12-hour shifts, but the biggest drip I do is insulin. So
There's more out there, my dear.
Yeah.
There's way more out there.
That's what I'm saying. So I haven't really had what I call a true ICU experience. But
yeah,
for me, I really loved my postpartum unit that I got to be on.
Okay.
Last year, my junior year, is when I did my OB and peds. So I don't know yet what I'm going to go into. I'm kind of thinking of just starting ground level and doing med surge or like a telefloor.
Okay.
And building up from there.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So there are many nurses out there who graduate from nursing school and still have that big, huge question mark. Mm-hmm. And the best way to learn is just to jump in feet first with whatever job opportunity that comes up. Mm-hmm. To find a place that allows growth and is looking, for new blood out there that's ready to dive in and mm-hmm. learn. So,
and that's one thing about in California. I don't know about other places. We have new grad residencies, which kind of give you a 3-month experience of the whole hospital. You do different clinicals on units, and at the end of your overall orientation, you can get offered different units to work on. So that's something that interests me because I'll get more experiences of floors.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have actual like residencies where I'm at. It's a matter of you interview for a specific job position. If you get it, you get it. You don't, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, trying to do 2 things at once here.
That's fine.
Once again, for those of you who are just joining us, unfortunately, my co-host couldn't be with us tonight, so I'm running the show by myself, trying to do 3 things at once right now. Yeah. So we're talking with Megan, who's a senior nursing student, graduates in May, and she runs the personal blog called Mighty Nurse Megan. Speaking of which, is the Ninja Warrior that you were speaking of, isn't she the only one that has actually completed it?
Last I knew, she didn't complete it, but she was like the first female to finish. I think it might have been the qualifying or the finals of the city, but nobody has, from what I know, has completed like the final Mount Midoriyama. So.
Oh, you even know the names. Oh, wow. Are we going to see you on that show? Huh?
I do not have any grip strength or. I'm amazed at her height that she can do the things she can do, and it's very inspiring.
Yeah, I think you got to be really good at gymnastics.
Mm-hmm. That's her background too.
Yeah. So now you had talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, and maybe we talked about this during the pre-show, but who are your blogging heroes when it comes to nurse bloggers?
So for me, the big ones I'm trying to think of, like who I check often, it would be Nurse Cyril or
Katie,
yes, and then the Nerdy Nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2 I kind of bounce between, and there's a few people who are on YouTube that I follow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of their names. Nurse Nicole.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then on Instagram, I have a lot too of people that I follow, like Nurse Mendoza. I think he just recently signed with Scrubs magazine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was huge on YouTube.
Yeah, he's got a big fan base. And
I think that's how he landed the job over at Scrubs.
Which is really neat. But
yeah,
for me, I kind of gravitate more towards Nurse Irel because I just like how she writes, and I feel like she's very open and honest and relatable, and I like that about it. Her pieces are very conversational, and It's always
And hey,
impressed me.
she's an ICU nurse.
She is. She's a neuro, right?
She is neuro ICU nurse. Yeah, I actually know Katie very well. So
Yeah.
I met Katie a couple years ago before she actually revealed herself. And then when I was with Scrubs magazine, her and I used to chat all the time. So
Yes.
she's a and you know, she's made it public knowledge that now she's an expecting mama. So
Yes. Which is
yeah.
really
So
exciting.
and she's grown over the years. So I think that's what's awesome about nurse bloggers is that they always start out here on one place, and then over the course of time, they develop into something completely different. But they never really lose that original voice.
Mm-hmm.
They just tell it in a different way. So I'll be curious, and I'll be anxious to see how your blogging voice develops.
Yes.
Seeing as you're still a baby blogger.
Yes, and
not
I'm not
even
even
a year
nurse either. So
yeah, you haven't even hit 1 year of your blogversary yet.
Yeah, but I really like Katie, and that I love her book. I've read it and recommended it to people on my blog, and I don't think I'll be writing any books, so that probably won't come from me.
No, don't sell yourself short in any way. Absolutely not.
I mean, we'll see.
You have already expressed in more than one way that you want to teach.
Yeah.
And you'll be absolutely amazed at and this is what I love about nurses and blogging and the internet is that you always start with the concept of this crazy shit can't just be happening to me. And then you realize that everybody experiences the same thing you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to bond over that, and you get to and I've said this in more ways than one, is that you as nurses, we kind of act, and this is my personal experience, we kind of act like those old military war heroes, is that when you get together with another nurse, you tell stories. That's how you bond. Because everybody has the same story. Because guess what? You and I just met, and we already shared the same stories about your first day at nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you and I could sit here and tell a story about the first Foley you inserted. Or we could talk about the very first time you had to give a subcutaneous injection. Mm-hmm. Or having to practice that on a piece of fruit or an orange.
We do oranges, and we also have little foamies, or what we call them. They're like padded.
Back when I was doing basic nursing school, we practiced IVs on those rubber armed mannequins that didn't look, feel, or they didn't have any of the actual experience of what it's like to put an IV in a human being. Mm-hmm. Yet everybody has that story.
But my school doesn't teach us IV, so
which I think is a tragedy. Mm-hmm. I think it is a tragedy that that happened early. Like when I graduated from nursing school, we still put IVs in patients. You actually didn't graduate unless you got 3 successful IV sticks. And then over the years, it seems like they stopped teaching that in nursing school, mm-hmm. and I guess they now assume that you're going to learn that in your first job. Yeah,
that's their kind of explanation to us, is that hospitals have different protocols, and we'll learn it when we're hired. And
so we have I'm responding to a comment from Tech Guy. We were talking about nursing stories. He says, I've heard the same thing happens with military people, special bond that when they meet, stories about basic training, etc., that creates a shared bond. And it's absolutely the same thing. And ironically, I'm former military as well as a current nurse. And it doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. You and that nurse or that military person can bond over, a war story or an experience in some way, or that first time you had that really mean patient. Everybody can talk about that. Or that first time you met that one elderly patient that you wanted to take home with you.
Yes.
We all have those stories. And I think that's what's awesome about blogging, is that you get to tell those stories. And then when Joe Schmo, who's in Australia, reads your blog and goes, oh my God, that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and you had commented on that as a blogger, you've met some pretty awesome people just
Mm-hmm.
because you blog.
I sure
So
have, and I've had great opportunities open up too, like working with All Heart as a medical company.
I saw that. Tell me a little bit about that.
So All Heart had kind of an open application on their Facebook page for being an ambassador, and I thought, hey, why not? I'll apply. I have this blog, and I'm easy to get my voice out, and I've actually fell in love with it. I love being able to do product reviews and try new things. And what I really like with them too is they care about like my friends or coworkers who are making a difference, who I see in like the hospitals or school, and they're willing to send me a little something extra to send to them, which is
That's
something
awesome.
we're doing right now for the holiday season. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. As a young girl, I love getting new things in the mail. I mean, I think everybody does.
Hey, you get to look good.
Yeah, and they give me like the top fashionable items, so that's where I don't get boring scrubs and
There you go.
great
There you go.
shoes and
I think I saw just recently you posted an Instagram photo of your shoes.
I think it
And
was on Twitter. Yeah, those are the
yeah,
Grey's
yeah,
Anatomy ones. They got multicolored dots on them, and
yeah. So I'm saying a hi and a hello to everyone that's jumping in now. We
yes.
have a couple fans who have been around since the beginning of our podcast. Chili RN is joining us. We have NICU RN Mama, or Laura. She is going to be a future guest, whether she likes it or not.
Oh.
She doesn't like to be on the video, but she's going to be. And then, of course, my good friend, Dr. Mike Sevilla, who is one of the social media gurus out there, always supporting the nursing profession and always supporting our endeavors here on this podcast. So welcome everyone for joining us at the very end of this interview with Mighty Nurse Megan.
Yeah.
So let's wrap things up here and let's talk a little bit about nurses and blogging.
Mm-hmm.
Why do nurses blog? Why do you think nurses blog?
For me, I like being able to tell people things. I like reading other people's stories and being able to relate to it. And I find it's a little bit harder when I read books. There's really nobody else to respond to or continue talking with. And so blogging has kind of given you that option. And I'm able to learn about new things that I didn't know were possible. Like Nurse Nicole is always Instagramming photos of her textbooks of interesting things she's found. And it's really neat to kind of learn from others. So.
And I think you touched on it earlier, is you want to pass on this knowledge and information to the next generation, to the nursing students that you're currently teaching.
Yes.
As well as the nursing students that are applying.
Mm-hmm.
So would you be bold enough to, direct them to your blog?
Yeah. If lately they've all been kind of noticing I've been wearing different scrubs and different shoes, and they all want to know what it is, or like I have stethoscope charms from Charm, and they always want to know what it is, so I kind of direct them to my blog that way, or
Nice.
I'll
Look
ask
at that.
them.
Marketing 101 right there.
Yeah, or like I ask them kind of what their struggles with school so far is, and kind of base my topics I want to do off of that. And I've had great experiences because I'm a mentor to a pre-nursing student, so someone who isn't in the program yet, but I also get to mentor a lot of the sophomores who are in their first year of the program. So you kind of get everybody.
You don't realize how much you're doing, how the things that you're talking about took me years to figure out.
Oh.
That you're doing market research at its most basic level already. So you're asking your fellow student nurses what they want to hear, what they want to know, and you're advertising by putting out the gear that you that you review. So one smart cookie, Megan.
Yeah.
One smart cookie.
There's plenty of times in my skill lab sessions that they'll be like, oh, I'm the same shoe size as you. Let me feel your shoes and how they feel because they're 2-hour sessions. So I usually will end up without shoes on my feet as they're wearing
Nice,
them.
nice. And responding to a comment here in the Twitter feed, Tech Guy talks about being a guest blogger on other sites. And if I'm not mistaken, you actually you've been a guest blogger on other sites and you've had guests blog on your site. Is that correct?
I don't think I've been a guest on anybody else. I've had people just kind of reblog or talk about me like you have, and I haven't done, I don't think, a guest post yet, but I've had one of my best friends from nursing school share a little bit on my post. She's in a relationship, and that's kind of a huge topic for a lot of nursing students, is how to how to handle being in a relationship and dealing with the stress of school and how much time school actually calls from you. So she was able to talk about
absolutely. I know for a fact that in the two separate experiences that I've had in the programs that I've been in both cases, there were students who had relationship struggles that were fairly significant. And I'll leave it at that. All right, so let's finish up with, if there are nurses out there who are listening to this podcast and they got motivated and decided, you know what, I think I want to start a blog. How would they do it?
I think the easiest way to start it is just Google like a blogging site. Like Blogger is what I use. It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of very user friendly, and just start. Even like you said, I guess my first post was just saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to blog about, and welcome. So just starting that way is always simple. And for me, my generation is all technology, so I never had a problem with doing the Instagram or the Twitter or the Tumblr. I know Nurse Iroll, Katie, I think she started on Tumblr and actually moved to writing on a blog. And people can do that too, because Tumblr, you can direct message people and ask questions.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people in the Twitter feed now just commenting on how to start. And quite honestly, I think Megan and I talked about this earlier, is that in the olden days, you actually had to know a little bit of HTML. You had to be able to do a little bit of coding in order to put, fancy things out there. Like to be able to put a picture into your blog post, you actually had to know a little bit of HTML. And now it's so simple and easy. It's the what you see is what you get kind of platform, where you can just drop and drag things into your post. So it's now more easier than ever to start a blog. You can go to any of the blog sites, and I believe Megan goes to blogger.com, which is the old blogspot.com. There's WordPress. You can go to Tumblr. There's a couple other sites out there that aren't as versatile but are still free. Many people actually treat their Instagram account as a blog. So because there's no limit to the characters that you can use on an Instagram account. So you can actually post a picture, and you could post a post that is, 500 words. There's no limit there. So it's not so, that's the easy part. Starting is the easy part. It's being able to continue that.
It's keeping up and getting readers and coming up with new posts. Having the time to even just sit down and write. I sometimes question just writing about whatever I'm learning. I'm in a leadership class, so I learned a lot of conflict and effective communication, which I'll probably end up writing about anyways because it's important.
Quite honestly, and you can ask this of any blogger, it doesn't really matter. You just need to get your voice out there, to get your thoughts out there on the screen. So no matter how random it may be, you just need to type it up and do it. Doesn't have to be short, doesn't have to be long. Don't listen to the crap out there talking about having to have a picture, it has to be 2 paragraphs, and it has to be SEO and this and that. The point of your blog is to tell a story. It's to share information, provide value for that person reading it. And that's all that really matters.
Yeah. Like there's times I don't make complete sentences, probably make run-on sentences, and you just just right, I think. And
Absolutely.
I think that's what a lot of people like too, is just that when they read it, it's genuine and it's not like a textbook. So
Absolutely. And I think that's the key, is that you are genuine about it. So while I'm talking to you, I'm going to try and post these one at a time. And what these are Megan's social media. Oh, these are her social media accounts.
There's a lot.
Yeah, that's okay. You're supposed to be out there. You got to get your voice out there. So that was Facebook. I'm going to try and copy and get these out here if I can. Once again, you're going to have to bear with me, audience, because I'm running solo here.
Yeah, so
I think these last three I'm going to post in one shot.
I have
here,
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
So Megan's all over the place.
Pinterest, yes.
Yeah, so Megan's on Facebook. She's on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and Pinterest. Pretty sure that if you went to Google and just Googled Mighty Nurse Megan, I'd be willing to bet you can find her on any of those social media sites. But for those of you who have made it out here onto the Blab site or are finding this on our website post-edit, you can also find Megan on any of those links that we've posted below.
Yeah.
We always like to finish our show, Megan, with some rapid-fire questions.
Oh, geez.
So these are easy. These are fun. And they are what we call rapid fire. So you can't do what other guests have done and sit there and think about it. You also only get one answer per question. You can't say it could be either or. So it's rapid fire, first answer that comes to mind. Okay? First question. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Awesome. What's your favorite movie?
P.S. I Love You.
Okay. What's your favorite food?
Popcorn.
Oh, that's great. And I think I know the answer to this one, but we'll ask it anyway. Clogs or traditional shoes?
See, but I like the tennis shoe version. So I guess that's traditional.
Yeah, we're going to go with traditional. Clogs are pretty specific, so.
I'm too short. I'll roll my ankle. That's the problem. I'm clumsy already, and they just don't work.
Well, and I will support you on that, because that's one of the reasons why I couldn't wear the clogs, is that where I work, I run or I walk fast, and on 2 separate occasions, I lost my shoes. So that was a deal breaker for me. I couldn't wear them anymore. So, all right, we're losing rapid fire. We got one more rapid fire question here. What is your most favorite piece of nursing equipment?
Oh, I don't know.
Rapid fire.
But I don't know.
Rapid fire.
See, that's hard because I don't think of nursing equipment. I'm at a hospital that is on paper charts, so I don't even have a charting system. I like barcoding. Barcoding. Meds, barcoding. I like that. That's my equipment.
So, Megan, you overthought that one. You overthought that one.
Well, see, the thing that came to my mind is, so my favorite aspect of nursing is the emotional component. I love to them, and I love being able to hold their hand and just be a presence. So that's what initially came to my mind, but that's not really an equipment. So,
like for me, my favorite piece of equipment is my stethoscope. So everyone has a certain, pieces of equipment, because there are nurses out there that have a favorite pair of scissors. Plenty of nurses out there will kill you if you touch their pen, so everyone's a little different. I like that you thought through, you had to think about that one for a while. So.
Well, for me, my hospital is on paper charting, and I've been at a hospital before with clinicals that had barcoding for meds, and I feel a lot more comfortable administering a med that way than how I do now on my preceptorship. I'm still cautious both ways, still checking my patients, med, dose, route, time, frequency, all this. I think there's 7 checks.
It just rolled off her tongue like that, guys. How did you like that? That was awesome.
But it's nice knowing I have that extra technology to red flag me.
Yeah, but my own problem with technology is sometimes we get overburdened by it, that we spend too much time on the technology and not enough time with the patient. So
no, my
that's always
favorite aspect is sitting in my patient's room, learning about their day or talking about a TV game show that's on, and so that's my favorite part.
You guys should watch out for Megan. I think Megan's going to make a huge dent in this profession.
I hope so. That's
got a heart of gold. So, all right, Megan. So I'm going to do a little bit of wrap up here. So for those of you that are in the Twitterverse and hanging out on the Twitter chat, we're going to do a little post show. Have a little housekeeping to do here. This has been an episode where we interviewed Mighty Nurse Megan. She's a senior nursing student graduating in May of 2016. She runs a personal blog called Mighty Nurse Megan. All of you who are listening to us out on the internet, who are joining us from podcast land, thank you for downloading our show. I have been running this one solo again. My co-host has been a little busy. You can find our podcast anywhere on the internet. All you have to do is Google The Change of Shift, thechangeofshift.com or The Change of Shift podcast. We have a website, thechangeofshift.com. We're out on any of the podcast players that you can find, and you type in The Change of Shift podcast. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. We do have a Twitter account that unfortunately is a little dormant these days, but you can find us on Twitter at AskTheCost, AskTheCos. We're out on Facebook. We have a Facebook fan page, The Change of Shift, and we have a YouTube channel aptly named The Change of Shift. Megan, thank you for taking the time out of your late evening to come talk with me.
It's only 6.
Yes. We've already established that you still probably have some sunlight, unlike myself.
No, not with daylight savings.
This is true. For those of you who are catching this post show, for those of you who are still hanging out here, as we always say at the end of our show, be sure to check your own pulse first. Did I say first or first? Man, I'm losing it. Check your own pulse first.